Hello, Reborners. My name is Karen, and this is Making Dolls with Karen. We're back with Lane. He had one round of enhancements, and he's a little bit light. He's still a little bit warm, so we can't really put any paint on him right yet. But he's not too warm to crease him. I'm going to be creasing his arms and his legs, and hopefully it'll stay. Maybe because he's a little bit warm, but I'm using the color Henna. It's the one I like the best. It's not purple at all. It's more of a reddish brown. A lot of people use purple. A few people use red, and some people actually use brown. So I took two of the colors and sort of mixed them together and decided to use a reddish brown. So I don't really like purple. I've tried it, and blue is funky looking, and most every other color I've ever tried is just weird. So I like this color. So anyway, it's just light enough. Now, remember that you're going to control your color, the darkness and the thickness and all that, with how sharp your pencil is and how hard you press down. You need a sharp enough point that you can actually put the point in the crease. So you're not just making a line just anywhere on the doll. I just creased 2 lines under the big toe. I don't know if you can see it as compared to the other toes, or as compared to nothing under the toe. I don't know. But it's very subtle, but it's enough. It's enough to make it look like there's actually a line there. There's actually a little fold in their little skin instead of just some bumpy plastic doll leg, you know. And I know I've been telling y'all, don't crease every crease. It's going to look terrible and dirty. But if you're creasing really light like I'm creasing, you crease as many as you want to, because I've recently creased several dolls every crease, and they look fabulous, actually. Now, if they were Leaf and Aspen and Ashley, those little preemie dolls, they have extremely creased up feet. I mean, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of creases. I don't have the kind of time it takes to do all that. I'm not fussing over my dolls. I just paint them. I know a lot of people really, really fuss over their dolls. They just make every little line and every little color and every little stroke of the brush perfect. And hey, there is nothing wrong with that. In fact, my mother always said, practice makes perfect. If at first you don't succeed, try again. She said that one too. And my mother was full of little quotes and sayings. And she was always telling them to us, because I guess she wanted us to try harder in life than a lot of the other kids ever did. When a lot of kids would give up, she expected us to keep trying. And it is a recipe for success. Succeeders are failures that keep trying. I got that one from the internet. I didn't get that one from my mother. My mother never thought we were failures. In fact, she thought we were just not trying. She'd always say, you're certainly capable. All you have to do is want to. You know, kids don't always want to, so therein lies the problem. But anyway, it is what it is. There's a cute little creased up little foot. I don't know if you can tell it's creased. Maybe I'm too close, maybe I'm too far away, I don't know. Now his leg doesn't have extremely amounts of, any sort of extreme amounts of creases in them. I'm gonna crease behind his knee, which a lot of times that one doesn't show. Now he has some little superficial, almost like dents. They're not even like a whole crease. They're just like a little dimple almost. And if I do them with a pencil, I always lay the pencil down on the side and just do a very, very light little line like that. because you want it to show, but you don't want it to look like you actually put a line on him with a pencil. It would look extremely funny. He's got a little bit of white residue left on him, but not to worry. When you're finished making him, it will not show. I've never had it show, not one single time. Even on Carol, which was the kit that I put, oh, it was so bad on her. I thought, I'll never, ever, ever make this into a doll that looks decent, but I did. Okay, the hands are very complicated because the inside and the outside are very creased. They need creasing everywhere. I like to do these little lines on the fingers. They're super cute done. That's one reason we're not coloring all the way up to the line. We don't want our crease to just blend in with the color where you painted the entire finger. We just did the little segments, if you remember the last video on Lane. I only did 3 little stripes on the fingers. And it makes them look like, kind of like that. I'm trying to hold it up where you can see it, but I just think it's making a shadow, me trying to hold it up. I don't know if you can even see it, probably not. But it looks cute to me. I don't like the creases dark. I just want something to be there. They don't need to be dark. Very pale creases are still creases. And they don't look so fake. You know, those really dark creases, very bold and very out there, they just look a little too fake to me. I like my creases to be a little subdued. I hear people on the stairs. People are so loud on the stairs. The stairs are metal and they resonate sound very easily. And especially children going up and down the stairs. They bang against the metal, and I think they're trying to make noise because they're kids and that's what kids do. But it's very loud. I was so surprised that somebody answered my questions in my video on the contest and got all of them right but one. I was very, very surprised. She even got the name of the dog right. I was just very, 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 very surprised. I thought, okay, people listen to my videos. Yeah, okay. But do they listen that close? And evidently she did. She told me that she listened to my videos all the time, even put them on her TV screen so she could see them better, which impressed me. I was very impressed with this lady. If she wins, she may actually win. I don't know if that many more people are going to answer questions since it's so late in the game now, but she answered them. And then she messaged me and told me she answered them. And I went and checked her answers, and she did phenomenal. She only missed one question. So all y'all who are going to answer questions, and she guessed. She said she guessed at some of them. But she got them right. It was amazing. I thought it was so amazing that somebody actually answered my questions. I just really didn't think anybody would, to tell you the truth. I really thought I'd end up with no responses. I've had contests in the past and people just don't take to them. I guess they just think, well, I'm not going to win anyway. The chances are very slim, so I'm not even going to try. I think that's what they're thinking. But shouldn't have that attitude. The questions aren't that hard, really. Even though I was surprised that she got that many right, they're not really that hard. It's stuff I talk about all the time, and if you haven't checked out the video on the contest, you only have a couple more days and it will be taken down. So anybody that answers after I take it down, their entry will not count. The cutoff is whatever time you have. It's going to be noon here in Tennessee on Monday, and this is Friday. So you only have a couple more days left to answer the questions. And then the contest will be closed, and I will take down the videos, and whoever won will tell me. I put up some dolls that they could choose from. They'll tell me which one they want, and I will send it to them. She's probably going to win because she got them all right but one. I just don't see that that's going to happen that often. Now, I'm not going to say that there's nobody that's going to get every question right. There might be, but if another person gets all of them but one right, then we're probably just going to do some follow-up questions just for those two people. And they won't be posted for everybody. I'll just send them to them through Messenger, which is the way everybody's supposed to answer the questions, is through Messenger. And I'm trying to bump up my watchers and my likers. That's the whole reason I'm doing the contest. And we may do another one another time too. I don't know. I just don't know. Let's see how this one goes first. If it's a big flop, then I don't know. It's not a big flop. I did get an A person, but I was hoping to get a lot more people to enter and a lot more people to watch and like the videos. That's what I'm looking for. Okay. He's cooled off now too, by the way. We're going to be painting him right next. It might be a mistake. I've not really done it this way before, where I put the pencil on and then immediately painted him. But I sometimes put the paint on, and before I put him in the oven, I do the creasing. But this time I did it the other way around because he was a little bit too warm to paint. But he's cool now. I just needed something to do while he was cooling, I guess. I'm just being very, very light with my pencil strokes. But you can see it. It's visible. That's all I want, is visible. I don't want it to be super dark. Or even dark at all. Sometimes when you're painting and you put a coat of paint on them, you're going, I can't see those creases anymore. But after you bake them and the paint becomes lighter, the creases start to show again. So it's not always, they're not always diminished all the way away. Sometimes they're just lightened a bit or feathered out a little more, or, something like that. Because you don't really want heavy, dark, pressed down creases anyway. They're going to look very, very fake. I just really want some color in those areas. That's really all I'm looking for. I am so, so incredibly sleepy. Ugh. You can probably tell my voice is dragging a little bit. I got my shot 3 times in a row, and I'm just after not being able to get my shot every single week because I can't get a ride to the doctor, I guess got used to a lower dose, and now that I'm back on the higher dose, it's almost like it was when I first started. Okay, he's got all his creases now, so we're going to go back to painting him. What I wanted to do in this step was darken these colors on the fingers and hands and stuff, because they just barely show. Just a little too vague. And then I'm pretty sure after they're darkened a little bit that they'll make it through all the layers of paint. I'll be satisfied. They don't have to be really dark. They just have to show. I just want that little pink color on the fingers. And babies really do have it. When my little smallest granddaughter was adopted, I took a long time to stare at her and looked at all, like, how much of her's modeled, how dark is her modeling, what color is her modeling, all these things about her. And I noticed several things. One thing I noticed is not there are times when their entire hand is red. There's other times when only portions of their hands are red. So it depends on which type you want to try to capture as to how you're going to paint the hands. And also the modeling. Sometimes her modeling was very purple looking, and sometimes it was red looking, and sometimes there was none at all. So that too is something you have to decide. I want it to be this color, I want it to be that color. I don't want any at all, I want a lot. Sometimes it was dark, sometimes it was light. It's just the things about babies, I guess, that, we don't always think about. Babies are not dolls. They're babies, and they have realistic skin. And that looks much better. See, the colors are a little bit darker on the finger, so now it's going to probably show a little bit better. And I noticed one foot had darker toes than the other one. It's this one. And I'm just going to darken the toes on this one, unless they get super dark, and then I'll have to darken both of them. Because what you want is them to match more than anything else. And I think those are dark enough, but these just look super light to me. It's a possibility I was using a brush that was almost out of color when I was doing this foot. We still don't want them to be super dark. We just want them to be darker than they are. Because, well, it matters in the end. Okay. Now let me look at this hand. This hand had darker fingers too. Yes, I remember that. They're still not very dark though. I'm just adding a little more color to them. It's the backs that are so dull. Just getting a little more color in each one of those little spots. You can't really hardly do it without smudging and making it everywhere. It's just a very delicate procedure. So I just tapped it a bit. It's not going to be real dark, but it'll be a little darker than it was. That's what I'm really looking for. And on his face, oh, he's still a little tiny bit warm on his head, but not enough to hurt anything. It's because it's stuffed. I'm going to darken up his cheeky stuff here a little bit. We're going to put a little swipe over his eyes. His eyebrows held up really well. Pencil usually does once you've baked it. It holds up extremely well most of the time. It also depends on what colors you're putting on top of it, and how dark the pencil was, how dark the paint is. All that makes a difference as to how it's going to show up. But it usually shows up pretty good. I'm going to pounce this a little bit because it's very stark. I'm going to feather out those edges a little bit. His ears are fine. I don't like them to be very dark anyway. But if the cheeks aren't fairly dark, they're not going to show. I could show you multiple dolls where I thought they were dark and they just didn't show in the end because they weren't dark enough. That you couldn't even hardly tell. I mean, you could tell they had blush on them, but you could barely tell. Okay, we're going to now do his lips and nails. They're the next step that I would have done last time, but I was afraid I'd mess up what I already did. Oh, I think I'm going to just get rid of all these little tiny brushes. They don't hold any paint. They're just totally useless, actually. If you're going to just paint with wet paint, I don't mean throw them out. I mean just stick them over in another container because, I mean, if you're going to paint with wet paint, yes, you can use those. But if you're going to paint with dry paint, not going to work too good. Okay, Lane's going to get some lips now. One thing, putting the very light dry paint on their lips helps you see the lip line. At the very beginning, when you first start a doll, that's the best you're ever going to see the lip line. It just gets covered over with colors and paints, and it becomes almost invisible. Now, some dolls have very, very pronounced lip lines. On those dolls, you can still see it, even though it is vaguer. But on dolls like Lane, who barely has a lip line to begin with, you're not going to see it at all later. So the best time to do the lips is begin early. Put some color on there. Even if it's not the final color, don't worry about that. Just worry about getting color on the lips so that when you're ready to paint them for real, you can see where you're going to paint. Because if there's any paint on that doll in the lip area at all, it's going to obscure that lip line and you're not going to see it. I mean, there is a chance you'll see it, but you won't see it well. Let's put it that way. He's got a big upper lip and a smaller bottom lip. That's okay. I just paint in the lip line. Don't worry about what he has or doesn't have. I just paint the lip line. The most important thing about painting the lips is getting them even. And staying in the lip line, of course. Don't worry about if you're getting the color right, because you're going to do several coats until you like it. Not all in a row. We're going to bake in between. And in between every layer of paint, after we've put the layer on, we're going to check his lips and his nails. And we're going to see if we like the color yet. Once you get the color right, you don't have to do them anymore. Even putting paint over it is not going to take away the color. That's how they look right now, which to me is too light, but okay, we're going to look at them again later. Now we're going to do the nails. Now on the nails, you want to be super careful to put a very thin coat on it, especially the first coat. Because if it's thick, it's going to run down here close to the where the nails grow out of the skin. And it's going to make almost look like you outlined the nails with a darker color, and it's ugly. It doesn't matter if you can see it. What matters is it's on there. Remember that paint is just paint. It doesn't matter if it has color in it or not. Thinning medium is paint. At least this is the way Bountiful Baby describes it. Is paint with no color. So even if you put thinning medium on for your first coat, it would help the paint stick the next time. Paint sticks to paint. That's why I seal my dolls. Think of sealer as a coat of paint. Varnish. They call it matte varnish. I call it sealer. It comes in a jar. Mine came in this jar right here, which is empty now, and I'm saving it to mix paint in. Fabulous little jar for mixing paint. It's 4 ounces, and it's about the same size as these little small jars I pay money for. If I can get one that I don't have to pay money for, all the better. Okay, that's that hand. The nails are not going to show this time. The paint, vague. It'll be so vague you won't be able to hardly tell. You'll have to strain your eyes to see color. But that's okay. We have plenty of time to build up the nails. We will do another coat when we put on his first flesh layer, and then the second flesh layer. Every time we put paint on him and we're ready to bake, we'll put on some color on his nails and lips until we like the color. I just mixed this little jar that I'm using out of right here. You can't see it for the head. It's a jar of thinning medium, and I just added some paint. Sometimes if the thinning medium is very, very full, you might have to take a tiny bit out to incorporate your paint, because as you're mixing, it's too close to the top and it'll spill all over the place. But most of the time you can get it in there. But if you have to, just take a little out and put it in a jar to use with the next paint you mix. I always put thinning medium in my paint. It just makes it work better. You don't want super dark, chalky paint, but you do want it a little thicker than just the consistency of paint thinner. So I put a generous amount of Exodus oil. It's a thinning oil. Some people use linseed oil and other brands of thinning oils. Any heat set thinning oil is fine. I just did Exodus because, well, I heard of it and I said I saw other artists using it on videos and I decided I was going to try it. And I love it. Anyway, some people just get linseed oil and they use that, but it seems extremely expensive to me. And at least the linseed oil I bought, maybe it wasn't a good brand, I don't know. But it had a brownish tint to it, and I didn't like that. Exodus oil is absolutely clear. And I don't know what it's made from, but it's for reborning. Linseed oil is something people use in painting and stuff, but I don't really know exactly what its purpose is. Maybe it is to thin the paint a bit. I don't know. But I did use it for a while and I didn't have any problems with it, but I switched to Exodus oil. I quit using it mainly because I really didn't think anything was happening when I used it. And at that time, Genesis was fabulous and you didn't ever have any granules in it. But the oil liquefies your paint. When you open up your paint, it should be very creamy. You should be able to take a toothpick and mix it very well, just with no trouble. It should just be super creamy, like, oh, I don't know what I can compare it to that you would understand the creaminess of it. But if it's starting to get older, it will be a little less easy to mix. And sometimes even the creamy won't dissolve completely down. And you'll have these flecks. It looks like flecks of color in your paint. Some people refer to them as granules. I don't know. They just won't. They just won't melt down. And when you have that, you have to paint in a certain way to get past it. But it is doable. When you put I always squirt a generous amount of excess oil into the jar first. Then I put my color in. No? Yeah. I think then I put my color in because it needs to mix with that Exodus oil really, really well. Oh, I don't have any paint thinner. It's evaporated out. I want to clean I do clean this brush. Anyway, after you mix it thoroughly with the Exodus oil, it's going to be almost watery. You're going to notice it's very, very, very smooth. And then that's when I put my thinning medium in. And I'm going to say I'm pretty generous with that as well, but not as generous as I am with the Exodus oil. I just put some in there. I don't measure it. I couldn't even tell you how much I put in there. It's different every time. I just take the jar and pour some in. And whatever looks right, I just stop. And mix that really, really well also. And then it's so creamy. If you see any flecks after that, your paint's probably not any good. But after you've mixed that so thoroughly, I use one of these little throwaway paint brushes to mix it. Because I don't want to get all that concentrated paint in my brushes and have to clean it out. And I just throw these away when I'm done with them. They cost like 3 cents or something. You get a whole pack of a whole big pack for $1.50 or something. Seriously, they're cheap. And the bristles are very, very synthetic. But anyway, they're easy to mix the paint with and get it out of the jar. And after I've put my thinning medium and my Exodus oil in there and I've mixed it till it's just almost liquefied, I'll start adding my paint thinner. The paint thinner will thin the paint and make it usable on your doll. Now, at one time, I don't know if they still do this now, you could buy a starter kit at Bountiful Baby, and it would have a doll kit in it, and it would have all the things you're supposed to need to paint that doll. But one thing it did not have in it was any paint thinner. they advocated using only paint, thinning medium, which the paint is just too thick to me. It's too thick. The only reason I can use it for the lips and nails is I don't know, it's just different. I don't know how to explain it. If you tried to put this all over the doll, not only would it take many jars, you'd use so much thinning medium, it would be not cost effective. But the paint would be very dark. I don't know. It just wouldn't be something you want to do. But anyway, that's what I do. That's why when you see my paint separated, I don't know if you can see this or not, but down at the bottom, you see the top looks like clear paint thinner, and the bottom looks like a thick layer of paint. But a lot of that is thinning medium and Exodus oil too. It's not just paint. And then you mix it up and it becomes paint. See, like that. Now, if you think your paint is too light, you can let it sit for a while and let it separate like that, and use one of these little bulb syringes like this one, which is very dirty. I needed to have cleaned it when I used it, and just put it in. Don't put it all the way down into the paint, just into the paint thinner, and siphon off some of that paint thinner, and your paint will be darker. That's just the tip of the day. But anyway, we're going to get Lane back in the oven now and get him painted again. And I'm working back and forth on Lane and my candy head that I got her a replacement head for, to paint that for my candy limbs, because the head I painted is up there on the shelf, and she had to get penciled hair because I couldn't root her. And I don't like that. I'm just going to sell her for a cuddle head, I think. And just, you know, make the replacement head and root it. I want her to be a blonde. I don't know. I'm kind of fond of blonde hair now. I used to never like it. When I penciled on hair, I hardly ever did blonde. It was almost always some rendition of brown, whether it be light, medium, or dark, you know. One time I did black on Cheyenne because she looked oriental to me. And it was such a bad mistake, because black pencil transfers to your hands. And every time you touch your doll's head in a different place, you're putting those fingerprints all over your doll. And it just turned out so ugly. I didn't even like it because it was very flat looking. Because, you know, I usually use 3 colors on my doll. But if you're making black hair, what 3 colors? I mean, are you going to mix brown in or blonde, or what are you going to mix in with it? It doesn't look right, whatever you mix in. So I just used the straight black, and it was horrible looking. And I said, never again. Sorry, but Cheyenne has to have brown hair. I used 3 colors for my brown hair, and 3 colors for my blonde hair. I only use 4 colors altogether. I don't use chocolate or dark brown or any of those. I use sandbar brown, which is the color his eyebrows are. I know you can see them. It's the lightest brown that I use, sandbar brown. Uh-oh, he's got a little bit of color above his eyebrow up there. Let's get that off right now. And then I use light umber and dark umber. That's the only colors I use for brown. And for blonde, I use sandbar brown, light umber, and beige. I think it's called beige. Yeah, beige. And depending on how much of each color you put, controls the color of the hair. I no longer like penciled hair. I used to like it the best. I thought it was the most wonderful thing you could do, because, well, if you're not careful, your rooted hair will get matted, and if you don't condition it, at least sometimes, it'll get brittle and it'll start to break when you brush it. You have to be careful with it. And I thought, well, you know, penciled hair, if you seal over the top of it, it's not coming off. You don't have to worry about it getting matted up or anything like that, and it looks pretty good. I totally cannot paint hair. That's one thing I cannot do. I'd love to be able to, but my hands are so shaky they would have the worst crooked hair you ever saw. It would not work out. So I decided one day I'm going to learn to root. And boy, was it a joke. I was rooting the ugliest hair you ever saw. And probably some of my older videos still show the ugly hair I used to root. I can root a lot better now. Even though I don't mono root and I don't micro root, I just root. Yes, there might be some holes in the head that have 4 or 5 hairs in them. I don't care, because the next layer of hair covers up that part that they call pluggy, and you don't see the plugs. And so it looks really good to me, and a lot of people have complimented me on my hair rooting. These are people who bought dolls from me and said, "Oh, you rooted that doll so good." And it's just regular rooting. I don't do any of that fancy rooting that people do. And I don't like bald spots on my doll. You know how some people root the head where there's a big swirl here, but you can see the head right through it. And then the hair all over the head has all these spaces in between it where you can just see the head. I don't like that at all. I don't care if real babies have that. It's ugly. And so I just feel the need to go back and fill it in. That's why I don't root like that, because I don't know, I just tend to be kind of a heavy rooter, and I just go back and I go, that doesn't look right, I'm going to put some more hairs in. Before you know it, it's thick. I root, all my babies have thick heads of hair. Hardly any babies are born like that, but some are. But all my babies are born like that. But anyway, that's enough talking, I guess. I just like to talk. I don't get my talking in most of the time. I used to call people, but meh. I don't know any people anymore. A lot of the people I know have died or moved away or something. And my kids are too busy, and my sisters and brother are too busy. Just don't have anybody to talk to. Y'all are it. Anyway, I'm going to get Lane back in the oven and get him a bake. And I want to remind everybody to please like, subscribe, and share. And happy reborning.